Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maureen O'Connor from Quilters Heaven in Northbrook, Illinois, and I am the Opinionated Quilter. First, I'd like to thank all my new subscribers, and for anyone who is new to the channel, you can also find me on Instagram at Quilters Heaven Inc. Today's episode, we are going to go over the Hunter Star in planned variety, stash variety, and scrap variety. I found many of you really like using your scraps and scrap quilts, so I am going to try to continue to focus on scrap quilts. But before we get to that, here's my opinion. I've been looking at cutting systems for quilting, and I have found that there are two basic kinds of cutting systems. The first is using dies, using die cut machines, and the other is all digital. And probably the most common for quilting in the die category is the AccuQuilt. This is the AccuQuilt Go. This is a hand crank. There is an electric variety. These machines are not cheap. I do believe there is a sale going on right now. I think it's 30% off, not 100% positive. But we got this before you had to be an authorized dealer to sell the AccuQuilt system. And we found in using this machine that it didn't make a whole lot of sense to cut 2.5-inch strips, 1.5-inch strips, and 5-inch squares, things that you can easily cut with a rotary cutter and a ruler, and especially now even with a stripology ruler, you can really bang those strips out fast. Now, I would like to eliminate from this conversation all the people who have manual dexterity issues. For people who cannot cut with a rotary cutter and a ruler, the cutting machines are essential so that they can be able to quilt. If you have arthritis or a tremor or some other issue that prevents you from cutting, then you're out of the equation in this discussion. So again, we found that cutting strips was not the most efficient use of this machine. What I found is the shapes that you can't cut easily: flowers, leaves, hearts, stars, all the things that a rotary cutter and ruler are not going to cut. Hence, those are some of the dies that we did buy when we were still able to buy them. Now, the problem comes when, say, for instance, you want to make a heart that's halfway between this size and this size. Well, with this die, you can't do that. You first have to see if AccuQuilt makes a die that's the size you want. And if they do, you have to buy another die. If they don't, you have to make a choice between two not as desirable options. So there's limitations with the die systems. Every time you want to do a different size that you don't have that die for, you have to buy another die. So we found that this was not what we would use most of the time. Now, I do not have an example of the digital. I really want to buy one. I just don't know which is the right one for me to buy. Hence, I've been watching a lot of videos. The main two are the Cricut and the Silhouette Cameo. And they have their pros and cons. There's lots of videos out there. If you just if you just put into YouTube Silhouette or Cricut, you'll get lots of choices to watch. There's also the Brothers Scan and Cut. So all of these go digitally. They don't have dies. So for instance, if you have a alphabet you want to do somebody's name, and you want to do it bigger or smaller, you can change the size very easily. Nothing else to buy if you already have that font. In the Brothers Scan and Cut, what I found was really intriguing was that you are able to, let me get this out of the way, you are able to scan the applique design and then go ahead and cut that out. Put a fusible on the other side. If you look at this, you can see this love, and actually each block has a word in it. And they're all really complicated scripts. I think if I had to cut those out, I would cry. It would be so difficult to cut these out. So you can actually scan from the pattern into the machine, put the fusible on it, and it will cut your shapes out perfectly. You can fuse it to your block and the stitch around. The possibilities are just endless. Think about taking your kids' school's logo and putting that in there, having it scan it and cut it out. How easy would that be? The personalization opportunities to me are just boundless with the digital. So if I were to buy a machine, I think I want to go digital. I just don't know which one is the right one for me, and I'm hoping to make a decision soon and adding it to our repertoire. Why do I think digital's the way to go? Well, if you recall how technology moves so darn quickly, I used to listen to music on albums. And then after albums came cassette tapes. I don't even think I own anything to listen to this one on anymore. And then came CDs. We don't buy our music this way anymore. How do we listen to music? Your phone and a speaker. So I really think the way to go is technology, the future. They'll continue to improve them. And when I buy a machine, I'll let you know which one I chose. That's my opinion for today. Today's episode is the Hunter Star. This is the first Hunter Star I made. This is the pattern that comes with the ruler in the instructions. I did a 6-inch block, and this is called a 3-color Hunter Star because I have red, green, and gold. And when you make it, it was just 4 blocks across and 4 blocks down. So it's just a 24-inch square. And to me, I thought, 24-inch square, it's too big for a candle mat, and it's too small for a table topper. So I decided I wanted to make it bigger. And at the same time, this square ends here. So you've got this little 2 quarter star points there, and here you have a half of a star. I didn't like that, so I decided I wanted to finish the stars in the border. So that's what I did, and now it's a good table topper size. And I am going to show you how to finish the stars in the border, which actually is the same thing as not starting the stars in the edge. So had I had foresight to know I didn't want to start the stars at the edge, I could have done that first, but this was my first one, so I didn't realize it until after I had made the original body. But the technique is the same. The technique is that you have stars on one end and not the other, whether it's out here in the border or it's in the squares. So I'm going to show you how to do that today, but we're going to do some other things first. Let's go over to my other table and we will start to show you a stash Hunter Star. This is my stash Hunter Star, using the Rapid Fire Hunter Star tool and techniques of Deb Tucker's. She can teach this much better than I can, so I urge you to go to her videos to see the technique. We will link her videos below. I decided to use purple and green, so I grabbed my stack of green and purple fabric and decided that's what I was going to do. Purple on the trapezoids and half square triangles, and green star points. So after pressing, and I do like to put a little starch on there, I cut my pieces. You cut your trapezoids according to the directions. She's got lines on her rulers. You cut your trapezoids 1 3/4 wide. You cut your star points 2 1/4. And since I was making a 6-inch block, you cut squares at 6 inches and cut them in half to make half square triangles. So first you take your trapezoids. Your first side goes on your strip down, and you sew 1/4 inch, and then you press, and you take your ruler and you go ahead and line it up on the edge here and cut. So you'll cut all the way down as many blocks as you're making, and you'll have pieces that look like this. Then you take those pieces and sew them on your next strip. And this time, instead of angling down like this, they'll be angling up like that. And you'll sew 1/4 inch, same thing. And then you'll press. And you need to follow her pressing directions, because this one's pressed towards the trapezoid and this one's pressed towards the star point. And that's so that they'll all meet up and nest when you put the block together. So then you go ahead, after you press them, you will go over here and cut these. And you just follow the directions. Again, line up the ruler and cut. And then you'll have pieces that look like this. And then you have to straighten those out. You take your regular ruler and line up on the 1 3/4 line, because the trapezoid is 1 3/4 wide. Cut. You'll end up with a piece that looks like this. You add your half square triangle to this. Press towards the triangle. And when you get 8 of these, it makes a full block. That makes a full star, I should say. This is a full block, but to get the whole star showing, you need 4 of them. And the last step, after you've sewn a block together, is to take your ruler and line it up according to the directions. And why do I not have this right? I'm off somewhere here. Oh, there we go. 6, making a 6-inch block. It'd help if I turned it the right direction, wouldn't it? Cut, cut, flip it around, line it up again on the 6-inch line, cut, cut, and you have perfect 6-inch blocks. So that's my stash version. I have not put the rest of these blocks together because I have that whole other stack I just showed you. So I will continue to work on this, and when it gets done, we'll show it to you. The next thing I want to show is a scrap version of the Hunter Star. And my employee Carol did the version from Missouri Star. And in the version from there, they use half as the creams. And this is not done the same way. It doesn't have trapezoids. It has half square triangles. If you look here, this is what would be our trapezoid with Deb Tucker, and this would be our half square triangle. But it's actually 4 half square triangles and a square. But it looks the same. So you get the Hunter Star effect with scraps. Now I did something different. I decided that I wanted to use 5-inch squares because I have this whole box of 5-inch squares. And this turns out really great. Let me show you. I have this whole box of 5-inch squares, and I thought, well, why can't I use 5-inch squares if you use a 5-inch square to make a 5-inch Hunter Star block? So I pulled out a bunch of squares, and I'm not going to go through the construction because the construction is exactly the same. But you need 1 half square triangle, well, 1 set of 2 half square triangles. So you just cut this in half to make your half square triangles. And then for this, I need 2 trapezoids. So I take my ruler and I cut 2 1 3/4 inch strips. And once I cut those off, I don't want to cut wrong here. This has to be really accurate or my plan won't work. So I cut 2 1 3/4 off, and guess what's left? 1.5 inches. Perfect for 1-inch squares. This I can cut into 3 1-inch squares, which I told you I'm going to try to continue to work on scrap blocks and small pieces for all you crumb quilters. So this is going into this bag, which I am working on a quilt that as soon as it's ready to show, it's a great scrap quilt. So now I've got my trapezoid pieces, and I line my Deb Tucker ruler up on the 5-inch line, and then I've got my 2 trapezoids, and guess what this makes? It's big enough for a half square triangle for a 1-inch finished block. So I'm not going to cut it now, but you can see it fits. So no waste out of the whole 2 5-inch squares. Love it. So the blocks are constructed exactly the same. So we can put them together however we want. I've got a bunch made. Not sure how I would want to put them together. At some point, I will get them all together, but there you are, a great use of 5-inch squares. I went to my 2.5-inch strip, not full with a fabric box to get the star points. I did have to cut them down from 2.5 inches to 2.25, but not a big waste of fabric. That's my scrap version. The last thing I want to show you today is what I mentioned at the onset of making the stars not start in the outside of the block. You can see here, let me go up here, it's probably easier to see. You can see here that there's no star started here. And the way you accomplish that is by making a trapezoid that is longer, because the regular trapezoid size would stop to make your star points. So I do a trapezoid that is 2 sizes larger than what this trapezoid would be. So let me show you with my sample pieces. I'll be right back. I've got my practice pieces set up to show you, and just arbitrarily, I have decided that my blue in my practice piece is the red, and my green is the turquoise, and the star points gold here are green in my example. So the first thing you have to figure out is which end of the trapezoid do you want to put the point on, star point on, and which is the side you want to be empty. And one way to do that is to use this diagram. This is a half of the block, and this star point is this diagram where the trapezoids are pointed down and to the left. This star point is this diagram where they're pointed up and to the left. So if you can't just look at the star point and figure out which is the end you want, cut out a piece that looks like this, and you'll be able to see which side you want to put it on. If I go over here to the red, which remember is my blue in my example, I can see that I want a star point here, but I do not want a star point here. So this star point is this side, and just the opposite on the green. If you put the green paper template there, you see you do not want a star point here, you only want one here. And so you go over here and say, oh, on the green, which in my example is the turquoise, you only want to put a star point here. So the first thing you have to do is cut the trapezoids. And I use the 8-inch line to cut my trapezoids instead of the 6-inch line, because you need to get all the way to the corner of the block. So the first thing I do is sew my 8-inch trapezoids onto my star points, and then I press, and then we cut apart just as normal, just like you would do in any of the other ones. And with the blue trapezoids, you do the opposite. Blue, go up and to the left. You press, and you cut apart just like normal. Cut, cut. So then you have pieces that look like this. You would trim, add your triangle, trim, add your triangle. You end up with 2 regular pieces, but only star points on one end. Sew them together. You'd end up with a piece that looks like this. You use your regular 6-inch mark on your ruler. Six-inch mark on your ruler. Why can I not do this? There we go. 6-inch mark on your ruler. Cut, cut, flip it around, cut, cut. You end up with a perfect 6-inch square. And blue, let's see, blue is red, blue is red, green is turquoise, star points here, no star points here. And that's how you do one-ended star points on the hunter star. I hope you've learned something today. We are going to continue on our next video with showing you how you can plan out multiple color stars. So you're going to have trapezoids that get different color stars added to it, and it has to be really planned or they won't all meet up right. And I will also show you how to do different layouts that aren't square. So until next time, happy sewing. Thanks for watching. See you next time.